Be Strong Families webinar series, Staying Strong and Positive for Ourselves and Our Children. I'm Katthe Wolf, and I'm joining from Wadsworth, Illinois. So as you come in the room, I just want to thank you for being here today with me, and I'm going to have a great conversation. If you would open your chat, and where it says 2 at the bottom, click the second thing down that says, should say panelists and attendees, and say hi. Hi, Anna Rodriguez from Wichita, Kansas. Good to see your name again. Who else is here with us today for this conversation? Andrew from Minnesota. Hello, Andrew. I'm going to get started in about 30 seconds. Hi, April from Lynchburg, Virginia. You need to check April, you're directing it to panelists. You want to direct it to panelists and attendees. That will become clear why in a minute, because it's your primary way to communicate with each other. Yay, perfect. Yes, thank you. Awesome, it's 12 o'clock and Jahira's with me. She's in the background making sure everything is going smoothly. Hi, Tanya with Child and Family from Geneva, New York. Welcome. So let's advance to the next slide and get started. Today's topic is environmental vitality. Our conversation is on environmental vitality. This whole week we're dealing with grief, trauma, and loss. So today we're focusing on environmental vitality, preserving memories, and clearing spaces. And I'm your host, Katthe Wolf. I'm the CEO of Be Strong Families. And we have a half an hour, and we just have some questions. And just like a cafe almost, and we have questions and you'll have answers, I hope. Let's go to the next slide and remind everybody the ways to engage. The primary way is the chat, which you're already using. And again, Tanya, you want to check panelists and attendees it's the second one on the drop-down menu. That'll be great, so that everybody can see that you're here and what you have to say. The other thing is, if you want to speak, which hopefully some of you will, it's much more interesting, and you can put a lot more, you can say a lot more than you can put in the chat. So if you want to speak, you'll raise your hand, not like this, but like at the bottom of your thing where it says raise hand. And then Jahira, who's in the background, will unmute you. You'll need to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. Thanks, Tanya. Perfect. So before we get started, one more thing, which is our agreements. This is in recognition that we co-create this safe space together to be able to go deep. We ask that you speak from your own experience, that you treat other people the way you want to be treated, that you just be here with us now. And if you need a minute, take it a minute. So if you agree, hi, Kimberly. Do like Kimberly and Andrew have done and type I agree in the chat. This is your warm up. This is warming you up for the chat. Chat for the chat. Hi, Darian. Hi, Kara. Hi, Nicolette, Michelle, Sheila, Anna. Wonderful to see you all. Okay, so preserving memories and clearing spaces. The first question that we want to ask is, how do you restore or clear a place that is associated with grief? So I guess the first thing is, what places do you associate with grief, or after someone has passed, or after a divorce, or after somewhere? I'm thinking other kinds of grief as well. I mean, I was just talking to my good friend and colleague Lisa Lee in California about childcare workers in California and the amount of grieving that they needed to do just in reference to their jobs and providing childcare for essential workers during COVID, and feeling, all the losses that were associated with that. So are there places that are associated with grief, and how do you restore or clear a place that's associated with grief? Anna says, I cleared out everything in my home when I got a divorce. I bought new stuff. Well, that's one way. I do a lot. I mean, Darian says home, certain rooms in the home or office, places you associate with the person. Yes, or associate with something. I'm going to tell you a little bit, something a little bit weird, which is when I moved, a lot of you know that I moved to this house, which is more or less rural, and it has 5 acres. And when I was walking on the land, I found this place that had this, I don't even know what it really was. I Googled, and one of my friends said that it was a deer skinning place, but it looked like something that animals would be hung on or something. And it just had a weird energy associated with it. And I was like, oh, I want to clear that energy. I want to get that feeling. It felt different than the rest of the yard. And so what we needed to do was dismantle the thing and get rid of the big post and the lumber. And then I took flowers like from the garden. There were a lot of roses and peonies and their petals as they, and I just spread flowers around. And it is shifting it gradually. Kara says organized and throwing items away. Darian, reclaiming the space. Yes. How do you reclaim the space, Darian? Yes. Like I'm saying, I was reclaiming this new space for me, but I was kind of like getting rid of the old and then also putting new. Sometimes I use, smudge sticks also or lavender or things that just changing the smell in a place, changing sage is supposed to clear a Native American. A lot of there are substances like Palo Santo in Peru, or Native Americans use sweetgrass or sage, and you light them and you burn them, and it's supposed to shift the energy. And because I know that it's supposed to shift the energy, it does for me. Nicolette says, I may not throw things away, but I would put them in a safe space so they're out of view and view them when I may need to feel close to the person. Darian says, get rid of things, bringing in new things, new scents, new colors, doing things in the space that provide comfort. Awesome. Does it work? Have you found that, have you had success in reclaiming spaces that are associated with grief? Sometimes it takes more time than you want it to. Definitely a process. Yeah, as grief is a process, and we've talked about that a lot also, that what did Judith tell us it was called? Oscillation, where to me, I always feel like it's like the ocean, like the tide, it swamps you and then it like recedes, it swamps you and then it recedes. Kimberly says, when my father died, I chose one item that meant most to me of his. That was his wedding ring. And I wear it daily. So it's like he's with me all the time. Nice. That's like a preserving memories. And that's our next question. Only keep positive pictures in place. Yes. It's interesting. And one more thing about clearing spaces that are associated with grief. When I moved into this house, again, a lot of stories about moving into this house, but we couldn't find the crawl space. Like we knew there was crawl space under the house, not just basement. Like basement is only part of the footprint of the house. And so we knew there was a crawl space. So one of the floors was buckling and needed to be torn up and replaced. So when they were doing that, I said, hey, go down there and find, it was open to the crawl space below. I said, hey, go down there and find the entrance. And what they found is that under the family room in this place, there was 1.5 feet of standing water. Now, the family who lived here before me had a lot of things happen. The father died, the teenager got in an accident and became a paraplegic. And I looked at that standing water, the sump pump had failed, but I looked symbolically as that standing water underneath the family room as being grief. And so part of clearing it was literally pumping out the water, getting a new sump pump and cleaning the whole thing. And then to me, that's the grief. And I've also had, Native American, there are some people who specialize in clearing spaces. And so I don't even know what they do because they did it virtually, but I paid, to have the land and and the home cleared of any of negative energies. So probably too much information. Hi, Sandra. Make sure you put it to panelists and attendees. Tanya says, it's been very difficult to get rid of anything of my dad's. It's been 2 years. So how do you decide what to keep and what to give away after a loved one is passed? And Kimberly says, when her father died, she chose one item that meant the most to me. But how did you decided his wedding ring was the thing that would be his energy that you would wear on you. How do you decide what to keep and what to give away after a loved one has passed? And also, how do you decide what to do with the things? So I know many of us have had the experience of assisting with cleaning out apartments, or, one of my friends' mother recently passed, and she went and took one thing, and then, it wasn't, she kind of like made it available to people in the community to come take whatever they needed or whatever they wanted. And the whole place got cleared. But Kimberly says, I decided because when I was 6, I found it in a dish and asked if I could have it. And he said I could have it when he passed. That's great. It's like when someone promises you something. Anna says, I only keep items that my children want that meant a lot to them. I think my mom did that when her mother died. I got my grandmother's silverware and her silver. And so it was kind of like her looking at the things that there were and deciding, which things, to give to her children. How do you decide what to keep and what to give away after a loved one is passed? Terry says, I found that with family, this is very difficult to do. What's difficult about it, Terry? Like the coming to a decision together about who gets what, or just the pain involved in sorting through everything, or I know my brother-in-law just passed away, and his children were in charge of clearing out his space, and they all went together and did it. But I don't know how you decide where to put things. Like if you decide to give them away, or you decide to throw them away. Anna says, your loved ones sometimes tell you what to do with their items. Oh my gosh. Yes, and that is something that, with all the deaths that have happened recently, that's something that I'm really thinking about, is preparing for my funeral, preparing so that my children, after my brother-in-law, ex-brother-in-law passed, and his children who were grieving him had to make all the decisions. They're young adults, they're not babies, they're in their probably late 20s, early 30s. But still, it was a lot to put on them. He had made no plans, so they had to do everything. And I thought, I don't want my son to have to do everything. For my sons, I want to like have made decisions so that they, so that they don't have to deal with so much, or at least they just have to follow my follow my decisions, and maybe pay for it as well. Because Dana says she's decided to start downsizing. I keep collections that mean something to me, such as handkerchiefs. I have many of my grandmother's, but I've started virtually cataloging everything by taking photos of the items and writing down the stories of it, but then letting go of the items. And just practically, when you let go of the items, you realize you'll never have enough room for your parents' entire life's collections. Give those items to whom you want to before you die, so you can see them enjoying the items. Mm-hmm. Terry says, yes, how everyone has different emotions and what should be done. Yeah, and that's not fun, right? The process of make sure you're, Terry, you got a second item on the drop-down menu, because I'm the only one that can see what you're writing. So panelists and attendees, that can be very difficult, right? Is not the decision. If you were the only one having to decide, it would be easier than having to have those conversations with others. What's our next question, Jahira? Where do you keep photos and objects that hold memories? Do you keep photos and objects that hold the memories? Dana says she scrapbooks and does digital albums. So is that where the photographs go, Dana? Like you said, you catalog everything and take pictures and then you put them in a digital album? What a great idea. What a great idea. So Carla says on a hard drive or create a scrapbook. Andrew says, I keep a lot of them digitally. I have a lot of photos of me and my grandfather on my phone and on Google Drive. And I also still have voicemails from him that I've downloaded as well. Wow. Anna says, I have photo albums for each one of my children that have them with loved ones. Nice. Tanya, hang them on the wall, scrapbook the items, shadow box. Hey, Tanya, do you mind telling us? I'm interested in the shadow box thing. Can you do you mind telling us about that? Raise your hand and Jairo will unmute you. Wonderful. Now you just need to unmute yourself and then you'll be, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so the shadow boxes are really nice because you can, display all the memories of the individual in a shadow box and hang it on the wall. Or
so what's a shadow box? I mean, what's a shadow
box? Shadow box is like, it's almost like a picture frame, but you put items in it, not just photos. You put like if they were a baseball player, you would put like their award in there and a baseball, that kind of thing.
Cool. And do you have those on the wall?
I do. I actually I just started doing it. We lost a dog and I had some of her memorabilia, like her collar and her paw print and that kind of thing. So I did a shadow box for her.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I like the creative part of that too. Like that it's actually, to me, when I do something like that, it's a way of grieving, it's a way of but it's artistic, it's creative as well, using creativity.
Absolutely.
And scrapbooking is like that too. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And Darian, we're moving on. Nearby and accessible easily. It brings me comfort to be surrounded by my loved ones, things who have passed. However, if it is something that has been difficult, safely in storage. I don't have a relationship with my father, but I do have memories kept stored away. Rebecca, you need to put panelists and attendees, but digital, I'm going to read what you wrote, but nobody can see it except me. Digital photo storage is wonderful, takes up no room and holds thousands of memories. Cool. Have you involved family members in doing the scrapbooking, or like, I'm thinking specifically of children. Do people have experiences working with children around making memory? Oh, Dana's sending a shadow box, I think. A shadow box link. That's a long link. I bet Andrew can find a link there. I'm going to see what she has, though. All right, let's move to the next question. I think this is also our last question. And what's your experience with altars or designating sacred spaces in your home? So Dana says she made a family scrapbook and then photocopied it 12 times for all the grandkids. Oh, wow. Dina, that reminds me, you know what? When my first grandmother died, I was going to go pick it up, but it won't even really be able to see it. This was in like 1996. It was a long time ago, and I was young. And so it was like the first big death in the family that I had experienced. And and this was before, desktop publishing got easy. I had to use like a Quark and I had to get all the stuff. But I basically asked everybody in the family. She had 4 daughters, and then all of them had children, my cousins. And I asked everybody to send me something written or photograph or combination of their memories of grandmother, because she was kind of the matriarch on my mother's side of the family. And then I made a booklet with each page was a different family. Each spread was a different family. And then there were other people that were in the family that were her great nieces and cousins and things like that. And then I duplicated it and gave it to everybody. And I guess that's a pretty common thing, easy to do now. But that was really, it was very helpful for me to, when I was doing it, to work through the process of grieving, and also was really delightful to know what everybody was thinking, like know what everybody was feeling. And even the little kids contributed, like memories of what they loved about grandmommy. I think there's a lot of probably apps, and there's probably an app for that now. I haven't done one in a long time. April said, Andrew sent us a shadow box frame. And April says, my son went through 7 deaths in a year. Wow. And we had a lot of grief to overcome. I found a book about grandpas and grief because one of the deaths was a grandfather. We did letters to grandpa and wrote grandpa letters and put them in balloons and released them. I know balloon release are not the most environmentally safe thing, but it really helped him still feel connected to his grandfather. Thank you so much for sharing that, April. And I'm going to read Nicolette's because it says just a panelist. But Nicolette says, my mom has a glass plate with her brother's picture on it. He passed from cancer. It's on a small table that no one sits at or has any reason to use to keep it safe from breaking. And Dana loves the balloon idea. And Anna says, one Christmas I had no money, so I did photo albums of their growth up to 18 years of age. They loved it and opened them at Christmas, and they laughed at each because of the phases they went through. But it brought them close to family that had died. Nice. I also have kind of an altar in my house with ancestor pictures on it, and it's really helped me connect with my lineage or my leg, like my how do I say this? Maybe I'm not the only one who's felt this way, but there's certain people that I wish they weren't in my lineage. I don't know if anybody has had that feeling. Like, I wish they weren't my legacy. It's like, I want to have different legacy. I want to have different ancestors. Like, I think this is like, but what I found is that when I put pictures of them or objects that are connected with them, and I make an effort to bring love to and compassion and understanding, and just recognize that everybody is a flawed human being, and that in some way, they're part of me and I'm part of them. And so if I separate myself from them or judge them, then I'm really judging parts of myself as well. And so it's an act of forgiveness and an act of compassion to kind of just remember them and connect with them lovingly. I don't know if that's landing with anybody, but I do that. And it's kind of like with people who have recently passed, with people that have passed a long time ago, just to kind of make peace with the history, with the lineage. Terry says, I now have a prayer corner with positive images of my lost loved ones and ancestors with essential oils and candles, right? I do that, yes. Essential oils, candles, the sage. the altar and next to the window. I pray and meditate there often and allow my children to help pick out colors and pictures to incorporate. Hopefully they'll have altars in their home as well. Yeah, it connects you to your story for good or bad. I understand. Thanks for that, Tyria says. Makes total sense. Thank you, guys. I simply keep the things I learned from them. Yeah, and also I keep when I'm trying to connect with ancestors or with I say problematic relationships that are over with. It's also recognizing that I don't know their whole story. Like I don't know their whole journey. And the judgment is not helpful for me or for them. So I think just that whole kind of acceptance and love and compassion and forgiveness and peace is like it makes me feel peaceful to pray there. And to it's also it is I like what you said in terms of a prayer corner, because it is a prayer corner for me too. I didn't describe it that way, but it's kind of like bringing the divine energy and combining prayer. Like it helps to be grateful for. I mean, I finding that gratitude is a big emotion that happens. Like I didn't have the closest relationship with my father. In the course of his death, I made peace with a lot of things related to our relationship, and I got to a good place. And now, like I have a picture of my dad on my altar in my prayer corner, and I'm just grateful. I'm thankful that he made possible a lot of things for me. And I don't think I valued the positive contributions that he made to my life as much as I was critical of kind of what I wasn't getting, or what I didn't get. And so I think for me, designating the sacred space in my home and having an altar and gives me an opportunity to work on that. April says she's been on a gratefulness challenge for 79 days. It helps so much with perspective and mindset. Hey, do you want to talk about that briefly, April? About what a gratefulness challenge and what you do in it? We have time if you wouldn't mind sharing. Awesome. You need to unmute yourself. Yeah, good. Thank you.
So I initially started the challenge because I've been going through a lot of personal things myself. I've been going through a divorce, and I know a lot of times when we're going through things, it just kind of seems like life is happening to us. And I was really working hard to try to change my perspective. So I actually started sharing it on my social media. And so it became a daily part of my routine. Every morning I started my day with, what are the things that I'm grateful for today, to try to get my mindset into just looking for the simple things around me. And so some days it's that I'm grateful that there's sunshine outside. Some days I'm grateful for the rain. And it's just really helped to change my perspective, my mindset, and give me a lot more positivity to my life. So I share it every single day in my stories. People now look for it. And for me, it was about holding me accountable for this, because this is something that I wanted to do for myself. So
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to see how long I can go with it.
There you go. And Tandra says she does an annual 100 days of grace, and one thing every day for 100 days. I also did for a while, like when I lived in New York for a while, every day I put it on a Post-it, and I put the Post-its on my wall and back of my desk, and it got covered with Post-its, all the things I was grateful for. And then I kind of like pulled them into me and was able to and burn them, so it wasn't like, I don't know, I just kind of, and I feel like for me, that gratitude is a part of me. So I think when you say, April, that's your intention, that I really feel that you wake up and, without it having being your disciplined practice, it is just part of who you are, that that you're noticing the beauty that's around you, and the joy and the positivity that is always there and always accessible. So we're getting to the end. Absolutely. I started in 2016, and the change in perception is life-changing. 100 Days of Grace. I love the word grace too. Thank you, Tandra. Let's go to the next slide, Jahira. So tomorrow, spiritual vitality in the context of grief, trauma, and loss. Ruben Mabubi will be, either will or won't be here. Ruby might need to switch until the next week, but we're going to have a talk about spiritual vitality in the context of grief, trauma, and loss. And then, and beyond religion, just kind of how do you keep your spirit positive and whole in the context of grief, trauma, and loss. Then Wednesday, social vitality and becoming who we are. And then Thursday, we're talking about mental, emotional vitality, gallows humor, guilty pleasures, and other distractions. So this is, we're rounding out, June is our grief, trauma, and loss month. We have a Grief Compass Cafe on Friday, and join us. See you next time. Take care, everybody. And this is our Grief Compass Navigating Trauma and Loss Cafe Booster Pack. All the questions in today's webinar and in all the webinars that we're having these 30-minute conversations, they all come from this Grief Compass cafe in a box, you know, so they're available to be able to, for you to be able to have conversations in your community. So thank you very much, everybody, and see you next time.